and that'll be in the bowl. I read something about that. Oh, okay. 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 Right. Okay. Oh, look forward to that then. Yeah, yeah, get the word out. Because it's a beautiful, have you been up there before? The bowl? Oh, it's beautiful. Okay, yeah, the setting, that bowl is just beautiful. There's something, so what have you been up to? Oh, yeah, I've only been to film content, but since I always worked, I never got up to the veterans. No, I take that back. I've been up to a couple of winter welcome powwows, and those are inside, February. Contest powwow, yeah. It'll be nice. Yeah, he covered our cameraman. He covered MMIWG2S Billboards.
We'd like to get started here. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Urban Evolutions has been kind enough to let us use their space so we could gather here. And they've provided some water in the cooler there. If you need to use the restrooms, you can go directly into their business, or if you're feeling a little hot and you just need a place to cool off, you can go in there as well. So I would just like to thank everybody for showing up today for this very important unveiling of the MMIWG2S Billboard. But before we get started, we'd like to start off in a good way. I'd like to introduce our elder and veteran, Dennis Knote, to open us up with a prayer.
Thank you, Kristen. Well, welcome everyone here this morning. This is a really nice turnout. Glad to see everyone here. My name is Dennis Knote. I am an enrolled member of the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, and our reservation is north of here in Kashina. I am a Menominee tribal elder, Menominee tribal veteran, served in the United States Navy during the Vietnam era. I also am a member of the Menominee Language and Culture Commission. And back home we have the Menominee Indian School District, which is grade K through 12. And I am a school board member, so I am involved in education back home. Teaching language and cultural. As is our way in an event like this, in a gathering, we like to speak to the Creator. But before I do that, I just want to make a few comments about what's going on here today. No more silence. No more stolen sisters. This is a really beautiful billboard sign that you see behind me. Kachkiwatchikin in Menominee. Kachkiwatchikim. That's how we say a sign or a billboard. This is going to help tremendously to make the public more aware of what's actually going on between our murdered and missing women, Indigenous women. And this has been going on for quite a while. I mean, this isn't something that's just recently happening. It's been going on for a long time, and it's about time that we make more people aware of it and see what we can do to slow this awful thing down and do something to stop it if we can. There's going to be other speakers here today, and so let's benefit from, let's listen closely, and hopefully we can benefit from what they have to say. So with that, I'm going to speak to the Creator, and when we do that, the speaker always has tobacco, or what we call niknamau. You'll notice I will not be removing my hat when I speak to the Creator, and that's because I am wearing an eagle feather. And that eagle feather has to remain in my possession at all times when I am speaking to the Creator. So with that, I'm going to switch to the Menominee language. Being woodland people, the language is from the Algonquin dialect. I'm going to ask the Creator to watch over each and every one of us here, to watch over and remember the murdered and missing Indigenous women and the G2S people. I'm going to thank the Creator for giving us life and strength as we go forward on our journey. And something I always say in my prayer, no matter what the event is, no matter what the occasion is, I always say, teach us to be kind to one another and to pick us up when we fall. I'll ask the Creator to grant everybody a safe journey home. And so with that, I am now going to speak to the Creator in the Menominee language. In my hand I have the tobacco. Poso mauni wiak, kitana makan, mat no skill piak, yo se om, mamachik tau isichiken, yo siope, na manini tan skill nianan, wawan and mauni wiak case piak. Dennis Kanot, Mokaman ni wishwan, a page pamotna, mamachik tau ni wishwan. Nakatamano at skikitim aname hatwan nishik sa kok sa moa o neknamao. Ni tawan o matnamane kachki bashik sa makanas. Maawaniwe patch patawanik. Nahaw mamawa kohono. Yoga awix eom neknamao. Kataina Samoanan, Kimasa Manok, Skill Kanawa Tuak, a Kunil Iskutuin, Espamianes, O Chikasia Anaka, Skamokaha Anaka, Sawano Anaka, Skanik Anaka, the four directions. Paso Tapanao, Sounding no Tamanok, Wawanans Kata Kea, Skace Pitaya Omas. Naha in a be, Mamawa Kohono. Na mami te tan sau patch no toea ni to ko chimanao. Ke snack to wiko, matamo sak mashik, kanota matatuak, makana mana, makawani matuak. Na hao mamawa kohono, na mami te tan sau patch no toea ni to chukimanao sau patch kanapanria, mao ni wiak mawa chase na tuak yosiope. Mashikta mawa kum wizakasim, Mashikta mawa kum kachkiwak, Mashikta mawa kum ni chianak, Mashikta mawa kum semakadesok. Wawanan katanan mawa ni kako nixcase minikia salpach pamata sea Mashik maskosawin. Kaki no hamoia salmana o toto a kuak mawa ni wiak, Mashikta o tapana ki papatina tuak. Nahau, mamawa kohono, mesia, mauni wiak sa kumpamaska, ke wayan. Wawanan kitana mule and excuse, batawanik. Netamo imaganak nahau, inditka, wawanan. Thank you, everyone.
Now you can watch me struggle with the mic a little bit. Match Wawanan to our elder for those beautiful words and the blessing for us here today. Poso Mawanawiak, Natamatamo, Natakam, Wapashi, and Nitotam, Kayas Mamachito, Komat Nomanewak, Anishinaabe Koyandao, Made Koyandao. So I just wanted to say my given name from our elder Steve Escanet Catnup is First to Do Things Woman, and I'm of the Martin clan. I'm a Menominee descendant, and I'm also the founder and executive director of the Waking Women Healing Institute. A lot of the work that we do is founded in connecting to who we are as Indigenous women, connecting to our healing stories, to our creation story, and it's a way that we can prevent these acts of genocide that we call MMIWG2S. We have found that both healing and justice are intertwined with each other, So as we continue to work on our healing, we must continually fight for justice for the missing and the murdered. I'm extremely happy to see such a gathering of support for our family members, one of which is here today, but to bring awareness to this epidemic, because it is here in Appleton, it's here in Wisconsin, it's here all across the nation, and it is a global issue. This epidemic has been going on for well over 500 years since the first contact, and it has been followed with acts of sexual violence like human trafficking. Everywhere that settler colonials went, they used sexual violence against us Indigenous women as a weapon of war. It was meant to attack the hearts of the nation. It was meant to attack the Indigenous women and girls of the nation, so that we not only attack the backbone of our Indigenous nations, but the future of it as well. This billboard that you see here today is a combination of many people, allies, Indigenous women, girls in True Spirit, from many different organizations, standing up and saying, well, we've had enough, and it's time that everybody else get involved and see what is going on. So we want to thank those ones, our allies, our partners who are standing up with us, and this is a Great Lakes effort. So our partners at Native Justice Coalition are from Michigan, and they started this billboard campaign over there. When we started working with them and our partners at Esther Fox Valley, the Mental Health Task Force, we decided that it was something that needed to be brought here to the cities. We know that Wisconsin is up there when it comes to human trafficking. I believe it's like third in the nation for human trafficking. Appleton is one of those hotspots. The Fox Cities is one of those hotspots. It travels down to Milwaukee and Madison and to Chicago, and it goes across to our neighbors in Minnesota. We have also been working with our partners in Minnesota, the Native Lives Matter Coalition, which is the next place at the Twin Ports where we would like to see one of these billboards. Trafficking has followed the Great Lakes. We consider our Great Lakes one of our most sacred places. Each of those beautiful grandmothers bring to us life. That's what they were meant to provide to us. And instead, traffickers have turned them into something else. They have turned them into a port to buy and sell human beings. We cannot allow this to continue. And one way we can fight back is by using our voices, being seen and being heard. We are not going away, and we are calling on you to join us in this effort. It has to move beyond May 5th, which is the National Day of Awareness for MMIW, and it must be an everyday effort. If you are a city leader and you are here representing your city, you have a responsibility now to get involved. You know there is trafficking happening within your city, and of those, Indigenous women are some of the most targeted. There is not one single Indigenous woman, girl, in my life that I do not know that has not been raped, molested, or trafficked. And I want you to sit with that. Not one. They say the stats are 1 in 3, but I can tell you those are of the reported stats. We are afraid to come forward because we do not trust the people we have to come to report to. They do not have a good track record of taking care of our Indigenous survivors, our Indigenous men who are incarcerated, our Indigenous human trafficking victims become victims in this very system. How many of us have experienced multiple forms of violence as Indigenous women, girls, and True Spirit? They say that number is about 84%. And I can tell you again, there is not one Indigenous woman, girl, or True Spirit that I have not met in my life, myself included, that has not experienced multiple forms of violence in her life. I am a survivor of molestation, of rape, of domestic violence, and alcoholism. I have turned my pain into healing, and we want to create a space where other Indigenous women can do the same. They can begin to connect to who they are as a MMIWG2S. They will know their language, they will know their creation story, and they will be able to pass that on to their daughters. This is a role for our Indigenous male and allies as well. White men have an incredible amount of power in this nation, and we are asking you to use it for something good. Use your voice, use your privilege. You can get into far more trouble than we can without getting arrested, and make some good trouble. We need your help. We're not going anywhere. We'll stand firm. This movement of MMIW was started by Indigenous women. It will continue through the hearts and stories of our Indigenous women and girls and survivors. But it does not have to be done alone. Wisconsin DOJ has created an MMIW task force. Many of our members are here today. As family members, as advocates, it is open to the public. Our next meeting is June 19th. We encourage you to check out the DOJ website, hop on that Zoom call, and learn. MMIWG2S, at the root of that is hate, is ignorance, and fear. We can counter that with love, education, and hope. We will continue to share our stories. We will continue to call you to action until we see that our Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit are protected. The responses that our families get are inadequate, to say the least. Many of our families have to form their own search parties to go and look for their missing or murdered loved one. Some of those intersectional issues of MMIW are lack of data. We are not counted in the data by law enforcement, by many of the systems that would raise a flag and alarm to say something is going on here. And that's a strategic move. That's on purpose. Just like every act of Congress and the United States Supreme Court to attack tribal sovereignty was a strategic move to harm our tribal nations by not allowing them to fully protect their most precious people, their elders, their children, their Indigenous women. Through acts like the Oliphant decision, PL 280. These acts make it very difficult, if not impossible, for us to prosecute non-natives when they come onto tribal land. That jurisdiction belongs to somebody else. So if a non-native were to come onto the Menominee Reservation and rape one of my aunties, there's nothing the tribal nation can do to respond. That jurisdiction belongs to somebody else. PL 280 put the criminal jurisdiction into the state's hands. When you do not have a good relationship with the counties that border your Indigenous nations, how can you expect them to hold accountable our abusers when they are our abusers themselves? There's many examples, too many examples of the lack of non-response, complete non-response when we have a missing or murdered relative. It's Indigenous grassroots movements who are making the flyers, who are putting it out on social media, ensuring that their loved one is going to get some response. It should not be that way. When we have a family member that goes murdered, there's oftentimes no prosecution or very little charges that do not match the crime. There are not enough consequences by the people responsible for holding justice. So, again, if you are a leader, you need to start educating yourself on these issues. And we're going to ask you, what are you going to be doing? Because we're going to be following up with you. We've met with Oshkosh Mayor Paul Mary. who after we came to speak said she would not let this issue die with her. She has 2 years left, and she's going to make a difference. Our prosecutors have an incredible amount of power to prosecute these crimes. It is their responsibility to do so. And it is the responsibility of investigators to make sure that it can get to that place in the first place. Do a proper investigation. It's not hard. These are basic things that we are asking for. Investigate, prosecute, prevent. There are ways to prevent this from happening in the first place. We should not just have to be focused on a better response for when we go missing and murdered. We want you to end it in the first place. End the violence in the first place. And how do we do that? It starts with spaces like this, where our survivors can tell you what they need, and then you put those needs into action in your own city. Tribal consultation is extremely important in respecting sovereignty. This is not just an Indigenous issue. It does not just stay on our tribal reservations and lands. It extends well across the state of Wisconsin. Most of our Indigenous people live here in the cities. Milwaukee has the highest population of Indigenous peoples. What kind of supports are there for our relatives, our survivors, to go to that are Indigenous-led, where they feel safe and protected? Just last night, I had another young lady come forward about a rape, and I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of seeing our families have to reopen their wounds over and over and over again just to get somebody to listen. And I think they hear us. I think they know what's going on. They are choosing not to get involved. There is a hearing held on a bill, AB 548, that would have legislatively backed the task force. It would have gave us teeth. It would have gave us funding. It would have made sure that our legislators had to get involved. They would not even give us a hearing during session. They held it after session. Half of them walked out as our families were telling their stories. They questioned our family members. It was absolutely the most disgusting thing and lack of human being respect I had ever seen. A lot of handshakes, a lot of "we're sorry this is happening." We're tired of the meaningless apologies. We don't need your pity, we don't need your apologies. We need you to do something. We need you to get involved right now. Prevent human trafficking. Find the data on our Indigenous missing and murdered within your city. Ensure that the coroners are properly classifying our murdered as murdered. And in all of those data systems, ensure that it's being reported to the national databases. There was a study done by UIHI across 71 urban areas of this nation. Nearly 6,000 cases of MMIWG2S were reported by them, an Indigenous-led research team, Abigail Echohawk. Of those nearly 6,000 cases, the DOJ logged in just over 100 in the nation. That is absolutely an erasure of this issue. It's an erasure of the violence because they do not want to acknowledge it. They are hoping it continues to work. They tried to remove us over the past 500 years from our beautiful Mother Earth, Turtle Island. Through policy, through boarding schools, which removed our children from the next generation. Those were internment camps, places of torture for our children. Those are missing and murdered as well. We need to make sure every single one of them is heard and recognized. Our heart aches for the families of those survivors. And every single one of us has somebody in our family who is a survivor of a boarding school, whether you're first generation, second generation, or third generation. My great-grandmother was one of them. In that one generation, our Menominee language was taken. It is imperative for us as Indigenous people to be connected safely to our land and to our water. It is our source of wellness, just like our language. And I'm so thankful for our elder and our veteran for sharing that here. That's our hope, hearing our language come out of the voices of our young ones. That's our resilience. That's our resistance. We have to also fight for our land and waters, because MMIW is tied to those issues as well. Everywhere you see a pipeline, human trafficking follows. Here in Wisconsin, we have Line 3, Line 5 in Bad River, and a proposed back 40 mine at the mouth of the Menominee River, the very place of our creation as Menominee people. They are proposing to put an open pit sulfide mine. Violence on the land is violence on our bodies. And they know it. These corporations know what they are doing. They have reports of human trafficking by their pipeline workers to the point where they have had to create a training for human trafficking for their workers. They know what's happening. Line 3 Minnesota Palisade, they just had a sting not too long ago. 6 pipeline workers were indicted for the solicitation of minor girls. That's 16 years and under. And I want you to think about where those pipelines are here in Wisconsin. How many of our young are being trafficked right now? How many can we help bring home? You have a responsibility to ensure your law enforcement are aware of MMIW. They are aware that Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit are the most targeted, and how to properly, culturally respond to that. All of your agencies that serve children and families, the foster care system, you also have a role in this. The boarding schools switched to the foster care system. Our children are still removed by the foster care system today at alarming rates. They're removed from our families, from our communities, from their wellness. When they are in that system, they experience abuse, rape. They're trafficked. When they age out, they're left on their own. That's a system failure. It has to be corrected. What are your systems doing within your city? Do an analysis. Get the data. Get the research. If you don't believe us, follow the data. Make sure it's Indigenous-led efforts to retrieve that information. Evaluate how your systems are working or are not working together to prevent and respond to the issues of MMIW. And encourage all your cities around you to do the same. Get involved in the task force. Push for greener economy. You cannot allow the rape of the land any longer, knowing the destruction that it causes to the people and to the future. That is negligence to the highest form. So I wanted to say, Matchwawanan, thank you for listening to me today. Init, Miigwech Bizindawian. But I'd like to introduce our next speaker. I consider her a friend, a sister in this work. She is a family member of Raylene Turtelot. She's here to speak on behalf of her and the work that she's done. She's also a task force member with the Wisconsin DOJ. So please listen to her words, take them into your heart and move them into action. Wawanan.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Wawanan. My name is Andrea Lemke Roshan. My family calls me Andy. I was named after my grandpa. My mother is Elaine Quayler Roshan. She is the daughter of Marie Irving Quayler. My mother was enrolled Menominee. I'm a Menominee descendant. My grandfather, Andrew Quayler, is absentee Shawnee from Oklahoma, and I'm an enrolled member of the absentee Shawnee tribe. We are the only people in the nation that has to prove blood quantum. I'm this much too shy of being enrolled Menominee, or I would be, because that's where my heart is. My mom, as long as she lived away from the reservation, always called Neope home. And in Native families, we're pretty tight. And it doesn't matter if you're an auntie, because she's pretty much like your mama. And it doesn't matter if you're a first, second, third, or fourth cousin. She's like your sibling. So today I want to tell you about Ray Elaine Turtelot. But before I do, I want to say Machwa Wanan to our elder, Dennis Knote. It always brings me to tears when I hear our beautiful Menominee language spoken. I know how to say hello, poso, wawanan, thank you. I can say half of the Our Father, but I won't. My family was raised very Catholic. And in fact, my mother was taught that to go up to Zor, to go where there was any traditional things happening, was pagan. That's the good work of the boarding schools in my family. I can also say a few swear words, but I won't either, because I'm really grateful that you're here. But I have a funny story about that. My cousin Ray Elaine, who I'm going to tell you about today, was an amazing human being. She was 9 months younger than me, because you know when you're a kid that's really important. But I will tell you that she was my elder. She grew up on the reservation. I did not. So she was learning the language. She was a beautiful, beautiful fancy dancer. This picture of her on my shirt is her the year that she was crowned Menominee Princess. Some folks don't like that the princesses are still crowned because you know you're kind of borrowing from England, who screwed us all over. But nonetheless, it has been a proud tradition in the Menominee Nation for lots of years. And in 1984, Ray Elaine was crowned the Menominee Princess. You don't get to be a princess because you're a good dancer or you're nice looking, although she was both of those things. Ray Elaine had a beautiful spirit. She was beautiful inside and out. She loved life. She was vivacious. She was adventurous. I'm a little more quiet and serious, so I love to tag on her heels, because she really taught me to live life fully and to not hold back and to be proud of who we are. Ray Elaine was a very proud Menominee woman. You have to know the language and the culture, and you have to be of upstanding character to become the Menominee Princess. And she was all of those things. So she had that title in 1984. In 1986, in August, she gave birth to her daughter, Elise. And in October 15th, it was her first night out with friends after she had become a mama. She had gone to a birthday party on the Menominee Reservation, and she never came home. And it made no sense whatsoever to our family. She was happy to be a mom. She was so excited about her daughter. Ray Elaine was very, very devoted to family, to her friends. So often what happens when we report a loved one missing, the authorities say to us, well, you know, she went to a party, she was probably out on a bender, and they don't get too excited about looking for us. October came and went. No word, no answers. November, December, January, February, March. We knew nothing of what happened to our dear Ray Elaine. Her body was found by a trapper deep in the Menominee Reservation in the forest. Her entire body was not found, just parts of her remains. So whether her murderers did that or the animals had their way with her, we don't know. I want to tell you a little bit about ribbon skirts, right? Because like so many of us who were not raised with our culture, we are trying to reclaim what was lost. And so ribbon skirts are very healing, and they are the way that we tell other people who we are, and it's the way that the Creator knows our spirit and knows who we are. So I made this skirt for this MMIW work and to honor Ray Elaine, and it's very purposeful. The black and white polka dots are good enough to wear in Madison, so people won't think I'm, dressed for Halloween, because a lot of people don't understand why we wear our skirts. But it also represents the night sky, because for 6 months, Ray Elaine lay in the woods, open to the sun and to Grandmother Moon and to the elements. So I have 5 stripes and the moon to signify the 6 months that we went with no answers. There are many jurisdictional issues for Native folks dealing with any kind of crime. The FBI has jurisdiction on many tribal lands, then you've got the tribal police, and then you've got the county sheriffs usually. Back in those days, I don't know that people really had their act together. When Ray Elaine's body was recovered, there was a suspected mishandling of the evidence. Where did the evidence end up? Who was in charge of it? Because of these jurisdictional issues, there wasn't necessarily a clear lead investigator. Ray Elaine's dad, who is very dear to me, he's like my uncle. He and my mom grew up very, very close. In fact, Ray Elaine is named for my mom. My mom always called her my little ray of sunshine. That's who she was. And so her dad went out looking for her. There were search parties. Family members were out looking for her body. And her dad actually came upon something suspicious regarding the folks that Ray Elaine was last seen with. Reported that to the authorities. And there just was never enough good follow-up, because it's 34 years later. It'll be 35 years this October. And our family still has no answers, no arrest, no prosecution. And I'll tell you, as hard as that has been for me, as hard as it is to think that her killers have roamed free all these years, and not really free, right? Because how can any of us be free when we take another life? So I mourn not only for her, but I mourn for her killers and for the parents of those killers. That somehow we have become so disconnected from our humanity, our culture, our true selves, that we can treat one another so poorly. And we need to fix this. So as much as we need your advocacy about the jurisdictional issues and pushing law enforcement and lawmakers to count us, to allow our voices to be heard, to snap to attention when we go missing. If Ray Elaine had been a white, middle-class, wealthy woman, her story would have been all over the media. The FBI would have made that their #1 priority. And that's the reality that so many people of color live with today. I'm a mixed bag. I am French, German, and Native, and I look an awful lot like my German daddy. So I pass as white all the time. But I will tell you, I have never again set foot on the Menominee Reservation, my mother's home, a place I love to go, without this feeling of deep despair and terror in my heart that there are people that come onto our lands, wander our lands, and in some cases are from our lands, that will rape and murder and steal our women and our girls from us. In fact, I didn't go back for a long time after Ray Elaine died. As awful as I felt for not being with her family, I felt physically sick whenever I was in those woods that I love so much. It's gotten better over time, but I'll tell you, whenever I think back to those days of not knowing, and then those days of knowing, it's hard all over again. For as long as Ray Elaine was gone, I held hope in my heart that just maybe somebody took her and used her, but will give her back to us and we can get her back to wholeness so she can be a mom to Elise. No child should grow up as Ray Elaine's daughter Elise has without a mom. And this is still happening today. Just this year, the remains of Caitlin Kelly were found, another young Menominee woman, a mother who went missing last summer. Native women are 10 times more likely than any other race in our country to be murdered and to be victims of violence. It's pretty sad. It's just hard to explain what that feels like. So I walk around in my very white-looking skin, and I know that I'm a little bit more protected than my cousins, who look more indigenous than I do. What a sad thing that I can think, gosh, my life has been immeasurably better because I walk around in this white-looking body. So in addition to advocating for MMIW, please advocate for justice for all races. This country has a terrible problem. We continue to other one another. We continue to put ourselves in our camps so that maybe we feel safe, but are we really? Because if we don't wake up and realize that we are all in this life together, if we don't get our heads out of our behinds and recognize that we are all human beings, regardless of how we look or regardless of what our cultures are or our traditions are or the religion we practice or the ceremonies we keep, if we don't realize that we are all in this together, elder I could maybe learn from, I was reminded that we baptize our babies Catholic and we bury our dead Catholic, which was kind of the message from some of my relatives to, Andy, just stay Catholic. I am trying to reclaim what was stolen from us. But back to our personal responsibility. We're all responsible to look into our own hearts and figure out if we're being kind and gracious or angry and hateful. It's hard work. It's very hard work because we all like to think we're pretty much above board. But we've all been influenced by the messages that have been so prevalent since this country was formed. But we can also fix it. And I am asking you to help fix it. One of the quotes that I have on my closet door, I read it every day, is by Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk. The quote is, "We are all here to awaken from the illusion of our separateness." So when people ask me how has Ray Elaine's death impacted me, I think about that quote. I do not want to other any of you I don't want any of you to other me. Because if we are othering each other, we are going to be mean and hateful, or at least judgmental. And that's a pretty slippery slope to somebody abusing someone else or to taking a life. So, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for helping me to remember Ray Elaine, whose spirit is still very much with me. And I thank you in advance for doing the hard work to wake up from the illusion of whatever you think separates you from anybody else, because it's truly an illusion. So please get out of your comfort zone. Talk to somebody who doesn't look like you, who doesn't think like you, and recognize that there is a lovely human being that is not your other, that is your relative. In the Native spirituality, we believe that we are interconnected with every other person and every living thing. So we can save ourselves, we can save our planet if we adopt this mindset. I have so much to learn from my elders. We all have a lot to learn from Native culture, from Indigenous spirituality. It does my heart good to see you all here today. I was driving over thinking, shoot, there's probably only going to be like 3 or 4 people, because a lot of people don't know that this problem exists. So it warms my heart that here you are on a very hot day listening to us speak, and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all that you'll do to take care of yourself, to make the world a more kind, a more loving place, so that nobody's mother or daughter or sister or niece or cousin has to go through what my dear Ray Elaine did. Thank you so much for listening. Wawanan.
Wawanan. I just wanted to thank Andy for her beautiful way of storytelling to make this issue real and to understand that, yes, it is a systems issue, but it is also an issue of a way of thinking. And that will be the shift that addresses the problem. There was a shift in thinking that was interrupted when the colonizers came here. They interrupted our original way of being and thinking about each other and how we're connected and how we move, how we respect all life, human being, natural world, that our health and well-being is dependent upon each other. We're at a very, very critical time in history, and you have some very important decisions to be made. Which way are you going to go? Which fire are you going to light? Are you going to choose this way that has been for too long? Fear, greed, development. Or are you going to choose this new way, this new beautiful fire that could be lit? And it will only be lit when we all come together. All races, all genders, all beings, fighting for our mother, fighting to protect all life and all human beings. So yes, address the systems, but take a deep look inside yourself and address your way of thinking. Thinking has great, great power. Our thoughts create or destroy life. It is one of our fundamental teachings. All thoughts emit energy. What kind of energy are you going to put out for that 7th generation? Our sister has chosen hers. It's an energy of love, of life, of protection, where we are all walking that road together. We're supporting each other. So Wawanan, for your beautiful story, for your beautiful words. We'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. V. Bill Van Lopik, to share a few words about the billboards and this work here today. Wawanan.
I really don't have much to add after listening to my sisters, Kristen and Andrea, and Elder Dennis. I was greatly moved by what the words they have to say. I just want to say, as organizer with Esther, we want to be a good ally and follow the leadership of people like Kristen and Andrea. And we are dedicated to doing that, is to being an ally and listening to what needs to be done. And I think we heard what needs to be done. You know, today, we invited, I think, about 25 different leaders in this community, police chiefs and mayors. Is there anyone here that is an elected official? No. So I think that is an indication of what we need to do. If we are, we need to challenge those powers of jurisdiction. What are they doing about this? And that is the job of Esther as we organize through our mental health task force and other things, is how do we make this issue aware to these folks that we invited, and some gave their regrets but didn't come. And are they willing to sit down with us and listen to these stories and decide and figure out together what needs to be done, so those things like what happened to Ray Elaine don't happen to anybody else. And that's what we're here for. So I want to thank you for listening today, for being here, for taking this information, taking these stories and talking about it with your neighbors, with your family, with your friends. And don't forget about it and keep it alive, because this is a movement. And I've seen this movement. It's happened just in the past year, 2 years. Now, it's been going on a long time, obviously, but where other people are getting involved, other non-native people, like mostly Esther, that needs to happen, and that is happening. And I'm very proud of Esther and the folks and the leadership of Kristen, who is the facilitator of our mental health task force, and for Hannah Schmidt, who's not here. She really got this going for us too, and I'm so grateful for Hannah and Kristen, and Renee is also here. And so just I want to close with Gary, just to say a couple words of thank you, and then we'll be done.
And why does Bill call upon me? Because I happen to be president of Esther. Thanks to all of you for being here today. We're all invited to marinate in the fantastic message we heard this morning and the stories. Just this morning when I put my hat on, I grabbed one from when I was in Canada at Lake Louise. Lake Louise. Who is Louise? The daughter of Queen Victoria, one of the daughters of Queen Victoria. But what is the original name of Lake Louise? The Lake of the Small Fish. What a beautiful indigenous reality name. Don't give it a name, take it out of reality. It's the Lake of Small Fish. And this morning, as we may feel we're a bunch of small fish in a big body of water ruled by powers that be, let's keep moving forward. Thank you so much for being here. Let's go home and marinate in what we heard today. Thank you so much.
One final poso. I just wanted to acknowledge some of our relatives who came to provide an escort. You may have noticed some Harleys, some bikes out there. Our relatives with the Wisconsin Indigenous Riders have showed up to honor our missing and murdered. We've been working with them for a few weeks now, meeting at some pretty good places to eat, having a few laughs. But really, they wanted to do something to honor and to bring awareness to this issue as well. Many of them have been on rides out in the Dakotas for MMIW, and they want to work really hard to bring that here to Wisconsin. So at the end of the month, they're planning a somewhat of a test run, but very public now, ride for MMIWG2S across Wisconsin. And they'll be traveling to several of our tribal nations on that 2-day ride. And along that ride, they're going to be carrying honor ribbons with the names of our loved ones across Wisconsin who have gone missing and murdered. In addition to that, they were going to bring speakers to bring in awareness. Many of them are involved in rapid search and rescue, and have made it their mission now to take that knowledge and put it into action. How can we better response? How can we move to bring awareness and prevention to this issue? So I just wanted to acknowledge our Wisconsin Indigenous writers for showing up in support. And again, we want to thank our gracious host, Robin. From Urban Evolutions for opening up this space for us, and providing some shade, some drinks. If you need to cool off, you can take a browse around in that beautiful shop of hers. But that's an example of allyship, of creating safe spaces for people to tell their stories. So that's an important thing as well. We have another task force member, Renee Grelwitz, here, who has done an incredible amount of work with MMIW. From water walks to marches to participating in the task force to collecting the data that people refuse to collect on us in a really good way. So I just wanted to say Machwawanan, thank you to our elder, to our veteran for sitting in this hot sun, but sharing your words. I really believe it's because of the way that our elder opened it that it went so well. So Machwawanan, Chimigwich Yonko for showing up.
This will be on our Facebook page because it's been recorded. So if you want to revisit it and share it with other people, please do so.